Hello, everyone. Apologies, we had some audio difficulties in this episode, so you might hear some little bit of echoing or something. Also, I had a cold, so I don't sound so great. Now, for our reading. From The Ghost Who Fell in Love by Barbara Cartland. Is it possible for a ghost to have a baby?
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Reading Room Ruffians, your favorite library podcast. We discuss books we've read, tell you about our upcoming programs, and throw a few guest speakers in for some flavor. We are coming to you from our public library in Jackson County, West Virginia. This is Mallory, your ADHD queen, and I'm joined by our supreme overlord, Carla.
I'm just here for the blurbs.
We're being joined from Seattle by Zach and actually Ariel today.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Today we are discussing A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. Sonia Purnell. There we go. And before we get into it, we're going to touch on next week's guest, T.A. Spencer, who is coming in to discuss Steel Fated, his book. We're pretty excited about that. Still working on the book, but we are making progress, which is nice for me. Ariel, are you doing good with that?
Yeah, I've done pretty well with it. I think that I might be able to finish it before he comes on, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll get most of the way through it before he comes on, I'm sure, but...
Yeah. Zach, have you made any progress?
I'll be real honest, I'm barely into it, but I will finish it. Definitely.
I believe.
100%.
I believe in you. All right, so let's get into A Woman of No Importance, which is about Virginia Hall. I don't know if anybody else knows about her, but when I started this book, I was not at all expecting such badassery. Like, I'm telling you, if we did a TV show on her, we would probably get a season for every month she was in France. And that's insane to me. It's absolutely insane. So she is a socialite from Baltimore, Maryland, and she had pretty well off parents. Her mom married well, and so she was expected to marry well. She did not want to do that, however. She was absolutely the opposite of all things. Like, she was very feminine, but she was like, I'm going to go get dirty. I'm going to go out and hunt. I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to go do everything that most girls don't do and look good while doing it, which is really cool. She also wanted to be a diplomat super badly, and as is of the time, she was not allowed to be. She was always turned down. No, you're a woman. No, you also have a disability, which she lost her leg from her knee down in a freak hunting accident. She shot her foot off with a shotgun. And
Holy
then
crap.
she got like gangrene. She almost died 3 separate times from her foot injury. Yeah, insane. So she is obviously a fighter from the get-go. And then she decides, since she can't be a diplomat, she's going to go overseas and work for the State Department, but as a secretary. She's going to do whatever she can. She is out there running the streets, like getting political information that nobody else can get for whatever reason. And every time she puts in to be a diplomat, they're like, no, sorry, you're a woman. No, sorry, you're disabled. And just kind of goes from there. She goes to, let me see here, Venice, Estonia, France. She's in Paris, I think, for a while. A couple of times, actually. And the second time she's in France is about the time France actually falls to the Nazis. And so she wants to do something, but obviously the State Department won't let her. So she left the State Department. She found somebody who worked for the newly formed SOE, which is the British secret agency. Like, not MI6, but like way, way smaller, like a total of 10 people who were going in to be plants, essentially, to try and build guerrilla warfare for the French resistance. They had no contact with England about like the first 6 months. And if they did, they had like maybe 2 radio people. And the first one was captured. The second one got everybody else captured except for Virginia and I think one other person. That was a whole mess. So yeah, I honestly, I would probably talk for 5 whole hours on this book, but she was the only one in 6 months that was not caught at all, which she started out in Vichy, then she went to Lyon, and both of those were huge powerhouses for the Nazis. The Nazis caught on to Lyon because of not Virginia, but other operatives who were not cool and couldn't keep their mouth shut. Like, just one of those, they didn't realize that they were actually in major danger. And so they would get too drunk, they would have too many torrid affairs. And, if you don't vet who you're hanging out with, you don't know. There's already double agents everywhere, just nuts. So in 6 months, she was the only one to not get captured. She was there a total of 4 or 5 years. And she actually didn't get caught anywhere until she was finally burned by the Nazis. Somebody infiltrated and finally got to her. She didn't know that. And she was like, I have been burned, so I'm going to go through Spain, which is the mountain pass. I can't remember the name of the mountain pass. She hikes it with one leg in the winter. Let's not forget about this. I can't. And the prosthetic leg that she has is not, obviously they don't have really good technology for that yet. So before she's even halfway up the mountain, her leg is bleeding and an open wound, and they make it and immediately are picked up by Spanish police. So she's in jail. She gets in Spain. They send the 2 people that she was traveling with back to the Nazis, which they had escaped from to begin with. I don't know how they didn't send her, but they didn't. And she got a message to England. England got her out. They were like, cool, so we're healing you, we're debriefing you. And as soon as she's fairly ready, she says, I'm ready to go back. And they're like, no, ma'am, no, you're not doing that. She's, yeah, I am. So that was a whole thing for a little bit there. So then she decided to move back to America, where she then hooked up with OSS, which was pre-CIA. So essentially, yeah. And she was like, hey, I know you guys are finally going over to France. I'll go too. I have all of this intel. I have all of this experience. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, she goes back in, and I can't even deal with how much she did in so little amount of time. She obviously had a lot of connections, but it is insane to me. She rescued 12 men from a prison camp with just one other woman. Like one of the prisoners' wives snuck stuff into them, and they were able to get out themselves. But she made all of that possible. She made the cues that they followed to get out happen so that they knew that they could. She fed so many people. She gave weapons to the French resistance. And I'm like, certainly, I'm almost certain that if Virginia had not been able to go over to France during this time with SOE, sorry, that I don't think that we would have won World War II. Like, really? She put a lot of the French resistance together, like made them what they were. It was nuts.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So by the time they were able to activate the guerrilla warfare, essentially what they did was most of the time they were just sabotaging like little things, because that was, Virginia said, we don't do anything big. We don't do anything that'll call attention. We maybe like puncture gas tanks, tires, like really inconvenient things that nobody's going to be like, somebody definitely did this. But once Normandy was stormed, they were like, all bets are off, do everything you can. So blew up bridges, caught trains that the Nazis had taken over to send more weapons and food and supplies. At one point, just a men of 18 stormed a group of like 120 men. They captured all of them. Well, I think they maybe killed like 20 of them. But they captured the rest, and they didn't lose a single Frenchman. 18 versus 120. There was one time about 200 of them captured. The last the last platoon of like 800. Wow. That was, yeah. And there were some casualties on both sides, but definitely more French. I think they maybe lost like 20 Frenchmen. Mm-hmm. And those are untrained men. Like, really, they weren't military trained. They were given weapons, ammunition, food, everything from England at that point, even though she was with America. Everything came from England.
And she put all that together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She ended up she became what's the radio? They called them pianists, which is really funny. And they called the radios keyboards, pianos. The radio.
Operator.
Yeah, operators. She became one of those so that she could go back in, so that she was actually not only being a spy at that point. And I didn't also know this, but the Germans had come up with a way to find radio signals from vans. And so it got to the point, especially whenever they first went in, they could catch operators within half an hour. By the time she was further in at like 6 months, it was like 5 minutes.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah. So they had to she ran so much. And by the time they were doing guerrilla warfare, she had a satellite phone, essentially, that she could talk with the pilots with for drops and all that. So she was able to get 22 successful drops within, I think it was like 3 months, which is a lot. Yeah. They obviously had more, but some were shot down. Some just didn't make it because of the coordinates, whatever. But that's insane. She was a real lady.
So why do you think that she was one of the few that didn't get caught?
She was a very solitary creature to begin with. Like, she loved her dad, and like her dad and her spent a lot of time together. But because of her disability, especially after everything that happened, she didn't trust a whole lot of people. A lot of people would like look at her differently. So she did a lot of hiding to begin with. And she already knew going in, like, they didn't have a whole lot of training whenever they went in essentially blind. Like, yeah, we're training you, but we don't actually know what you're going to get. So she scoped it out. She sat back and she said, I'm going to wait and see what we're doing here before I even try to think about getting anybody on my side. And so she knew that keeping herself secret, not drawing attention, was going to save her. And it was proven time and again that is exactly what saved her. She only kept contacts who did not go around being loud about anything. She really made the effort to make sure that everybody in her circle was trustworthy. And really, yeah, there until the end, if she had a bad feeling about somebody, 9 times out of 10, that was the exact, something was wrong with them.
She obviously was very intelligent and knew what she was doing. I think maybe part of it, too, is because of the times. Mm-hmm. She was female and she had a disability, so she was overlooked. And what harm could she do? She's just... Yeah.
That is actually one of the big things. Yeah. And on top of that, the beginning, she was American. And America had been neutral for a lot of that time. Mm-hmm. So she was able to go pretty much anywhere and do anything, and nobody thought anything of it because, well, they don't have a say in the game. They don't really care. So
she's just a silly little female anyway.
Yep.
Did they not eventually figure out, hey, wait a second, there's this lady with a peg leg who's around every time anything bad happens?
Actually, yes. Yeah, it was very, very late. It was maybe, I think, like a month before she was burned. So like this guy infiltrated, and it was maybe just a month. He fed a lot of information. He fed her a lot of bad information and then gave the Nazis the correct information. But he didn't actually know her name. And she was very adept at changing her appearance. So even if she didn't dye her hair or a whole lot of other, she changed how she walked, how she talked, even how like her face looked. I guess just by stuffing like stuff into her cheeks so her cheeks looked fuller, or she was just so great at it. She would be like 5 or 6 different people within the span of a day. And so she met this guy a couple of times, but he spent more time getting her contacts, like her closest contacts. And by the time she was going out of Spain, the whole thing was, we're looking for a lady with a limp. And that was, they called her essentially that in French. I'm not sure of the phrase, but it was, she knew that was eventually going to be something if she drew a lot of attention to herself. And that is one of the biggest things that got her.
That makes sense. I mean, it's hard to hide the fact that you're missing a leg.
Yeah, because she did pretty well with her false leg. But by that time, she was also out of her, like the socks that protected her leg. Mm-hmm. And she was traveling a lot of this time by foot because you couldn't get petrol, you couldn't get a car. If you had a car, a woman certainly wouldn't be driving it. It would be a French military person or the Gestapo. So she did a lot of walking, and I just, I am blown away by her. It's insane.
That is kind of wild. Can you define also burned here? You said she got burned twice, so.
Yeah, so she is a spy, and in the spy world, if you're burned, you're found out. You can't go back in. They know what you look like. They know your name. They didn't know her real name, but they did know most of her aliases. And they had the Nazis legitimately put her picture out for the Gestapo to see. The French police had her picture. It was a pretty big deal. So burned is meaning basically you can't go back in without being found out. So at one point she was like, I'm not actually burned, I'm singed. So, like, they're aware of me. Yeah, not straight up.
Sassy. I love it.
Yes. Yeah. She's like, I'm only singed, so I'm going back in. And you can't really stop me because I'm important. And essentially they were like, I guess, yeah, okay.
I like that.
Yeah. I was so proud of Virginia Hall this entire book. I laughed a whole lot at her. And of course, there was a lot of sarcastic laughing because so many times Virginia went above and beyond and outclassed and outshined everybody that went with her. But every single time it was, well, she's a woman. Well, she's emotional. Well, we're not going to promote you. Well, this, that, the other. And it's, for the time, I get it. But also, she proved herself so many times and was such a pivotal point and key to the Second World War. Wow. That I don't know how they didn't see immediately that she was the reason so much got done.
They didn't want to see, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a pride thing, if nothing else,
Mm-hmm.
It amazes me. I mean, I really want to read this book because I haven't read it yet. The amount of women that did so many important things in history, and we just have never heard of them.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of men out there, too, that we haven't heard of.
Yeah.
It's just sad that only a very few get recognized.
Yeah. I will say a lot of her stuff it was classified. And the author does say, I have spent years going through having stuff declassified so that I can have it for the book. Apparently, of SOE documentation, only 15% of it survives. The stuff that she was involved in.
Wow.
A lot of the stuff in France, everything she did that the French had documented, burned in, I think, like 1947 or something like that. So that was lost. And then there's just so many things that weren't even written down because she wouldn't allow it. And whenever it did come time to like post-war time, they wanted to honor her, and she said, no thanks. Like, I'll accept the award, but I don't want anything with it. Like, I don't want anybody to see me about it. I don't want anybody to know about it. I don't really, because she wanted to still be a spy. She wanted to still be able to go and do things elsewhere. She didn't want people to know what she looked like.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And at the end of the book, hearing a lot of people in the CIA, because she did work for the CIA post-war because that was the CIA came about. And again, they gave her a pretty good deal there at first, and she did get promoted a couple of times. But then it was like, no, you can't go any further. A lot you could tell was men who were like, no, sorry, she's not good to work with. And this, one of the last like scathing reviews she had was from a guy that she never worked with. Yeah. And it's like,
so how is his opinion even valid?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I wanted to know. But now a lot of people modern times who do know about her in the CIA, they get just as upset that she was overlooked and stunted from doing so much more than she was able to do, because she just was such a planner, such a key. She made sure everything was thought out 3 separate ways before she did anything. And at the time, I know especially the CIA they didn't want to be that way. They wanted to like just go in with a bang and then run away. It's like, it's just kind of, it's weird, because what got her through France, through the war, was all of that planning, all of that secrecy. She was able to go so many places, and they were like, no, we don't need that. We don't do that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Obviously, they were wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody nowadays is just like, she was way ahead of her time, and she really was. Mm-hmm. She never got married. She did at 52. One of the last men that she worked with ended up being who she ended up getting married. They didn't get married for decades because her mom didn't like him because he wasn't rich. Oh, Mom.
I'm surprised I've never heard of this lady before. Like, I've watched a bunch of, like, World War II documentaries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Over the years, and obviously history classes. Never heard of this lady once. And this book only came out in, like, what, 2019 is what I think it said?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I genuinely, I want a docuseries on her, and I want it to be, like, seasons long. I cannot believe, and so many of the people that she worked with, one of her biggest key elements was Germaine, and she was a brothel owner. Prostitutes had like prostitutes, and it talks in the book about how one of the biggest things that they did was give the Germans syphilis on purpose. Like lots of times they made essentially a game out of it. And of course, after the war, they were not treated well. So, you love to see it. But Germaine had a huge brothel house that was filled with like really nice things. She was able to get stuff off the black market. She entertained both German soldiers, French soldiers, and I think even just like regular people at that time. But she always kept them separate. They never knew that the other was there. Anybody who was an enemy, anybody who was a friend. And she was able, because she had so many connections in the underground, she was able to get Virginia so many things, so many more contacts elsewhere who were obviously very secretive and therefore trustworthy. And that was her biggest working partnership throughout the entirety of the war until she ended up being captured because she had been burned. But yeah, so many people you wouldn't expect she worked with. She went out of her way to grow a relationship with them, even if it wasn't necessarily like super intimate or, like, well, we're besties. But her and Germaine definitely were besties. Really, really cool.
It sounds like it's somebody who nobody else would have, I guess, interacted with in the first place anyway, right? Because, again, it is a woman. I know she's like got some sort of influence around the area, probably, is what it sounds like, because she has this big brothel house. But it's not like something that most, I'm guessing, at the time, male spies would have even thought about. Like, I mean, nowadays, that's obviously a source of information for people in, like, media, but I'm betting back then it wasn't quite the same thing.
Yeah.
It's probably because of the way society at that time thought about prostitutes. And, I mean, it's like they probably didn't have a brain in their head and definitely couldn't, spy on people or pass along information because...
One of the other things that the prostitutes would do, Virginia was able to smuggle in, before she got contact with a radio operator, she was close enough to the Swedish border to send parcels through the embassy there back, and then England would send some illicit drugs. And the prostitutes would use that to get the German soldiers hooked. So that then they were more likely to like OD or just like get absolutely addicted and not do any of what they're supposed to do. Yeah, they did many masterful things. Yeah, they would get them really drunk and get all the secrets out of them, and then like make them pass out with another kind of drug. It just really incredible. They were working the system. Yeah, they really were. They knew what they were doing. And a lot of those women, whenever the war was over, they were paraded around France naked. They were like tarred and feathered. They had their hair shaved off, like just treated awfully for doing, I mean, a lot of good for their country. And it wasn't the normal, but what did y'all do?
It's easy to cast stones.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Here's like the real question though. Yeah. Do you think that you could have been a spy?
Like Virginia? No, I am not that
cool. Like, listening to this and stuff like that, I think, yeah, I could be that cool. But, like, in all honesty, would never even get close to being that cool.
I think I could be secretive and keep stuff to myself and, like, probably suss out some pretty good contacts. But I don't think that I could plan as in-depth as she did in such a short amount of time. I mean, she did take her time to do stuff, but whenever she sent stuff in to rescue those 12 men, it took maybe 2 months. And to escape a Nazi prison in the middle of France, Vichy, France, which was their headquarters, they were like locked down. That's incredible. Yeah. And she had one of the prisoners' wives do most of the work because at that time she was recognizable. She wasn't yet burned. And that was so she set all that stuff up. She had the clue for the guys to know they could go was an old woman walking with 2 kids. And they knew that was the green light. So if it had been an old man with 2 kids, they wouldn't have been able to go. It's like, how do you just have them walk by on the day and the time? Like, how do you know? How do you know when they're going to, how do you even know if they've done it? It's just insane. So she was such an in-depth planner, and she had 3 separate plans for them. And she was able to get them food, extra resources. She was able to smuggle that stuff in. Just incredible.
I think if there's any part I could have done, it could have been the planning.
Yeah.
But I would have been such a nervous wreck the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't have handled it. Maybe one event, and I'd been like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have done any of the other stuff.
Mm-mm.
I wouldn't have had the social connections because that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I would have been terrified the whole time.
I couldn't do it. I'm one of those people that like, I'll go and buy someone a present, and 2 seconds later, I'm like, hey, I bought you a present. Do you want to know what it is? Because I can't keep my mouth shut. Like, that's my issue. I'm like, guess what? I got so many plans.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think I could. That would be the best.
I think you could definitely be quiet about it and sneaky about it.
That thoroughly planning in such a short amount of time, I don't think I could. I just don't. Her brain was so intense, and it also was really, really cool. Well, this part isn't actually cool, but there at the end, there at the end before she got burned and back in, they were taking Benzedrines to stay awake because you didn't know what time you could actually send out messages. You didn't know if somebody was going to come for you, especially like you were just so paranoid at that point. It was just popping benzos.
I would have never survived.
Never. And she did this for like 2-3 years straight. Like, wow.
If this book is only 15% of what she did,
oh
my God.
Yeah. I'm telling you. Yeah. And I don't think it's only 15%, but yeah, the stuff from SEO that was only 15%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I just can't, I don't have words because I know that there is stuff that was not written down because she didn't want it written down. And so like, what else did she do? I don't know. It's insane. It's crazy to think about.
She never gave any interviews or anything, did she, afterwards?
No. Mm-mm.
I would imagine not, but, because she wouldn't know what was classified or not anymore.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, if she had hurt somebody people are still alive from World War II. They could still come after her.
Mm-hmm.
Is she alive? Did she die?
No. What year did she die? I just listened to
that's probably the reason she didn't do interviews is because she had made a lot of enemies, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
So.
No, she's definitely not, born in 1906, dang.
Yeah. It was after, let me see here. I just read this yesterday.
It says 1982 on the Wikipedia.
That sounds about right, because Paul, who she ended up marrying, died 5 years later. Yeah.
He lasted longer than most.
Yeah. And he had a stroke, too.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Paul also, let me tell you, Paul's a good man. She is such a commanding force. She is like, she wears the pants. And he was like, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Love that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I tell you what, like just absolutely whenever he came in, that was also whenever everything was over basically. And they were supposed to go further in to maybe secure more forces around France. And nobody in the French army wanted to work with her now that everything was over because they thought she was Canadian or British. They didn't know that she was American. And she kept that one to herself because she wasn't sure how anybody would react to it from France because America had done some things where, everyday citizens had been harmed. And not on purpose, but, when you're in the middle of something that awful, anybody who does it's going to be on your list. And so she was struggling against a lot of people who she had helped liberate France because she loved France. And so Paul came in with a couple of other guys, and immediately he was the only one that was just like, yeah, let's go. You've got this. We're behind you. We've got you. Just basically from then on out, that's what he was. Just, yeah, let's go. I've got you. That's just so cool. Yeah. You would think that it wouldn't really work out. And they did mention, like, a lot of times post-war relationships happened mainly because of just the extenuating circumstances. Everything's just, and the trauma release and all of that stuff. But they lasted. They really did. It was really, really cool to see. Well,
That's
read,
cool.
I guess.
Yeah. it's probably because he saw her as who she was and not as a woman and not as a spy, but as who she was and loved that and supported that.
Yeah.
And she probably did the same for him.
Yep.
Okay, so we were doing some research while you were talking, and we found that there was a movie about her called A Call to Spy.
I've never heard of this.
Well, that's why we were Googling stuff, because I wanted to see her picture, so I pulled up pictures and stuff like that, and I saw, this thing that had, it was someone who was not her, obviously, playing her. But it says, known by some as the Limping Lady, Virginia Hall, a keen and resourceful operative, once orchestrated a jailbreak of 12 Allied spies from a Nazi prison camp using a tin of sardines.
Yep.
Which is cool. It came out, when was it, 2019?
Yeah, 2019. It's got a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And it says you can watch it on Netflix.
Yep.
So.
Well, I'm watching that tonight. I really am obsessed with her. The whole book, I was beaming with pride. It was insane. So many times she would say or do things and I was like, yes, you did. I am so proud of you, Virginia. She doesn't know who I am. She's also not alive, but just she needs to know.
It's okay. You're putting that energy out there.
Yeah. But this was Virginia.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize that the Kindle had pictures in it. But
that is really, she's pretty.
She's gorgeous. And then there was a picture.
But she's got that narrow face. I guess if she did stuff her cheeks, she would,
There's a picture of her and Paul. This is the guy who infiltrated her circle and basically was the reason a lot of them died.
Yeah, he looks like a...
Yeah.
Well, never, I'm not going to say that.
Yep.
A scoundrel.
Correct, yes.
A scoundrel.
Not like a cool one like Han Solo. Like a bad one.
No, this is the bad one.
Mustache twirler.
Yeah. Well, see, I had another word, but I chose to use scoundrel.
Yeah. Trying to see, where did that picture of Paul go? It was in their later life. Right there. Look how cute they are together. And he's younger than her, too.
Wow. My gosh, she aged well, too, didn't she?
Well, she...
And I know you guys can't see this, but you'll just have to look it up on
She actually
Google
did not age that well.
Because she's pretty.
She is still gorgeous, but
he's a handsome guy,
because she was on Benzedrines for so long. And whenever she was coming off of them, she was also then taking downers. And she says that that's one of the biggest things that she regrets is because that she had heart problems from then on out. They don't think that she could have kids because of it. So they never got to have kids. And at one point they were going to adopt, but that fell through. And so basically they just had dogs from then on out. But
there you go.
But yeah, they were just such a good couple.
Yeah.
I loved reading about how she found that happiness after everything that she went through. And even then, but yeah, they talk about how she was older than him, but she also had aged a little more heartily, I guess, because of that. I mean, just constant anxiety, paranoia,
I could
trauma
imagine.
For 4 or 5 years straight. It's no, I don't know how she left whenever she was 38.
Wow.
Yeah, she wasn't like a young lass whenever she went in, but she also, I think just her entire story is incredible. And I don't think I can accurately put the right words in about how I feel about Virginia. Just,
You're definitely going to have to make this a priority to read this book. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
I'd like to know more details and stuff,
And there's so much, I know I make fun of myself because I'm a pretty good note taker. My Kindle notes are so long. And just the first 5 or 6 chapters there are so many notes, and Kindle has the 4 or 5 separate colors. I color coded them, and even then I was like, my notes still need notes. There was no way I was just going to go by my notes only, because we would have probably been here for 2 hours at least. She's an amazing woman. She puts so much stuff together. I highly, highly recommend reading this book and then also looking into her more. I don't know what else is really known about her, but I'm for sure going to go in and watch that movie.
Yeah.
I want to know everything about her always. She's who I want to be when I grow up, even if I'm not a spy.
I couldn't handle that anxiety.
No.
And I hope to never have to.
Yeah. I've got enough anxiety without having to be a spy. I'm good. But yeah, wow. Do you guys have any other questions or comments?
I don't think I have anything. I'm definitely going to have to read this book. I'm going to put it on my TBR and hopefully get to it sooner rather than later. But no, nothing right now.
It is on Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, okay. That's even better.
Yes, I listened to it, and then I went and looked just to see if it was on Kindle to maybe buy, but it's on Kindle Unlimited. So that's how I was able to take notes and read along. It was really, really nice to listen to.
I think I ordered us a copy for the library, too.
Yeah, I think you did as well.
I know, I talked about it, but it hasn't come in yet, so now I'm kind of I wanted to go back and check my list.
Yeah, definitely read. Amazing. And I really... The librarians in Libby, absolutely correct. It does read like fiction. My heart was pounding a lot of times. I was on the edge of my seat. I screamed, "No way! Are you joking?" Like,
please don't die.
Yeah. It really was a book that I knew how it ended, but I still was just like upset that it was over. You know,
I'm gonna be real honest. I forgot that this was a nonfiction week, and I was like, "Wow, this sounds pretty dope."
Yeah, it really, that was there were actually a couple of books from that list that I had picked, and they all sounded really good, but I narrowed it down to 2, and I'm really glad that I picked this one. Really, really glad.
Me too. Makes me want to start now, but
yeah.
We have the rest of the day to get through first.
Yeah.
I'll probably start with watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we should watch the movie.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'll watch it tonight too, and then we can talk about it.
I won't get to watch it tonight. I'm driving children to their great-grandmothers.
That's fair. Okay. All right. So I think that wraps up our talk about A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. So on next week's episode, we're going to be talking with T.A. Spencer, and we'll do a little bit of a deep dive about the book. So you guys, if you haven't read yet, definitely do it.
Get started. It's long.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's long.
And
it's in Kindle Unlimited, and you can order it off of Amazon, but we also have copies in the library too.
Yes.
The copies in the library are all signed.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So then after Steel Faded, we will do a general book chat. So if you've been missing that, you get ready. I know Ariel and I have read quite a few books again. So we'll have a good list for you. And then following our book chat, we'll do Ariel's deep dive pick, which is The Patient by Jasper DeWitt. And the week after that, we will do Ariel's nonfiction pick, which is called Chasing Ghosts. Ooh.
Oh man, I really was getting ready to do that, and then you did it.
I wish we had the video on so I could show you. I typed that on my notes.
Yeah.
Did you do the fingers too? The
yes, she did.
Yes. Okay. Oh, I gotta breathe. All right, okay.
It's funny. It's funny.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Reading Room Ruffians. You can find us on Facebook by searching Reading Room Ruffians Podcast. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at WVJCO Library. And of course, you can follow us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Jackson County Library WV. Remember, only the best libraries have librarians who don't shush you.